Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's had their coffee. I may be from the South, but I talk really fast. And remember, all of this is recorded. And my goal this morning is to teach you. I know the big hype right now, which I'm on board with, is Airbnbs and short term rentals. And I'm a big proponent of that. But I've started learning how to kind of diversify my rental portfolio out in many different directions. My husband Noah talked about, as Stacy said, private money yesterday. And we've been able to do a great job raising private money, but also purchasing passive income. And that's really big because I'll kind of tell you about our dynamic and our family and what we do. And again, as Noah touched on, we do every facet of the business. So passive income isn't the only one, but I've been able to learn and really capitalize on travel nurses. And as you guys know, the healthcare industry is growing and growing rapidly. So I feel like if you're in an area where there's a hospital located nearby, and it's not even necessarily a hospital, but a large medical industry, and there's people coming in for many different reasons, that is a reason you should know about travel nurses and what to do. If you're not, you're missing the boat. I think the days of just long-term tenants, they're not over, but I think they've changed. And I feel like if you don't know some of this information, you're behind. You're behind the ball, and you're letting other investors get ahead of you, and you're not really maximizing your rents. So, what I want to do is go ahead and share my screen and kind of get into everything. Um, on here again, I'm Christy Duckett-Harris. So this kind of gives you a little background. I laugh about the picture to the right. That looks like the calmest family. And that actually is a very old picture. We now have an almost 7-year-old and 5-year-old boys cruising court. And this year, we've actually been virtual schooling and running the business full time. So, for those of you parents doing that great work, it's been fun, chaotic, hectic. And it's really shown us that you can do this business full time, as well as being home with your family, which is really cool. And again, that's why we touch on the passive income. That's our ultimate goal, to really do this full time. So I've been investing since 2007. And I started like everyone else. I actually went to a seminar workshop to learn about the business, and started by flipping houses. Well, as everyone knows who was in real estate then, what happened in 2007, 8, the market shifted drastically. So I was able to sustain during that time and do the business full time. And in 2009, you may have heard my name at some point talking about mobile homes. I actually moved to Columbia, South Carolina. That's where we live currently. And I started investing in mobile homes as well. So we've done rentals with them, flips, everything we talk about with houses, we've done with mobile homes, which is pretty cool. I've been coaching since 2012, which is a huge passion of mine. I truly believe in helping others and teaching the business of real estate. So obviously, that's why I'm partnered here with Stacy and REI USA. I think it's an amazing platform to learn all facets of the business. And I know starting off, it can be really overwhelming, right? Because you're learning about all these strategies. And some of you are thinking, like, I haven't even, bought my first home. I haven't even flipped my first home. Where do I start? So I tell people, really listen to everything and find out what speaks to you. But the ultimate end goal, like Stacy says, with the storage units, with the passive income, is really getting rentals in place, because you want to get to a point where you wake up, and literally yesterday was the first of the month, right? And literally all the rents were coming in. It was like boom, 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 boom. And what a great feeling to know, like, hey, we've got this passive income coming in. I don't even have to think about it. It's just here. So we ultimately want to build to that point. My husband and I lead the REI USA South Carolina Super Group. It's the third Thursday of the month. So you can access that from the REI USA website. So please sign up for that. We talk about the South Carolina market. We talk about different strategies that we use. Future forward, we're going to be having guest speakers in the market. If you're looking to invest here, please reach out to us. But a little quick background about myself. I was raised on a farm. Funny, my parents still live on a farm. My dad's 74 years old, still has 250 head of cattle, running the farm like he was 20 years old. So I grew up with a really strong work ethic. So I'm not afraid to cut grass, roll up my sleeves, get out there and do it. And I ironically, my whole life, real estate was around me because my dad bought land. So I knew this was where I wanted to be. I've just found a way to really work smarter, not harder, which I think is key in this business. I actually took the path of college like most. I went to Radford University in Virginia. I got a degree in psychology, which I guess ultimately has helped me with real estate and just dealing with people. And again, we live in Columbia, South Carolina. But down at the bottom, you'll see I'm a big believer in education, helping others, and keeping it real. And when I say keeping it real, is like, I don't like to sugarcoat stuff. Sometimes you will have bad days. Real estate is not perfect all the time, but it's knowing how to pivot and move forward in real estate, I think, is the key. And I'm also a big believer in family. My family is the number one thing. You saw my husband Noah yesterday. We're in real estate full time. We believe in teaching our children the business. And literally, our oldest son has probably been to more closings at almost 7 years old than most people in their lifetime, which is pretty cool. He just actually, we had to kind of virtually skip school last week to go to a closing, and I emailed his teacher, hey, we're not going to make it, but we're actually teaching him the business, so he is learning, which was kind of cool. So we try to implement that in. Now, when we talk about your rental portfolio, we want to talk about diversifying it. And a lot of us think, why do people, put their money in the stock market? And a lot of people do currently, right? Noah talked about that yesterday with private money, about raising it and talking to people that have their money in different platforms. But why do people diversify their money in the stock market? Why don't they put everything into one stock? Well, it's because if one's not performing, they want to make sure that they have other ones that will outperform that one, right? Because it's different time, different things, different market standards. Same with real estate. When we think about, and my concepts have changed, and it's a lot from just learning and being surrounded by people like REI USA, people that really understand the business and people that I can learn from and really, kind of move forward in the right direction. Because when I started in real estate, I thought about, hey, I'm going to buy one home and then I'm going to buy two homes, right? Like a single family home. And, I'm going to try to buy them in the same neighborhoods. Maybe I diversify a little. But my end goal was, how do I get to, like, my original goal was $10,000 a month cash flow. I want to know that every month $10,000 is coming in. Now, how do I get to that? So I started thinking in terms of houses. Well, it got to a point where I thought, like, gosh, if I have to buy all these houses to get to that point, that's going to take a really long time. So then I started looking into like larger units and commercial real estate. And I thought, I don't necessarily want to own an apartment complex. That's just not for me. Like, maybe I'll change my mind, but right now that wasn't kind of where I wanted to be at. We'd owned mobile home parks in the past. That was great. That was great money, but different headaches come with that as well, right? And I would still buy mobile home parks, just maybe smaller ones. So I found like my bread and butter was multi-units. So 3 and 4 units. And I'll actually show you a case study of how we diversified our rental portfolio and bought that. But not only diversifying the properties, but also diversifying the top types of tenants that you have in place and the leases that you have. And when we started thinking like that, that's when we actually found travel nurses. And it all came from a lot of market situations. So of course, COVID, right? Last year, it was a really interesting time. We had Airbnbs and short-term rentals. And for those of you on the call that have them, or for those of you that don't, you've probably heard, as soon as I think it was like March, the beginning of March hit, we had bookings all the way through the summer. And we're not necessarily in a vacation market. So I felt like it was a pretty safe market because we have the military base, we have college parents coming in, all different types of people. And when COVID hit, I realized, oh my gosh, we're starting to get cancellations. And not are we just starting to get cancellations, it was everything was canceling because now there were travel restrictions. And I thought, whoa, okay, this is crazy. Like, what are we going to do? And I started thinking like forward because I lived through the market of 2007, 8, and 9, like a lot of you. And I don't think anybody kind of knew what was coming then. And I felt like, could this be another one of those? I don't want to be paranoid. I don't want to worry, but I also want to be prepared. We had, 5 rehabs going on, same thing. I thought, oh my gosh, let me get this together. Let me start looking at supplies. What if the Lowe's shuts down? Like, what does that look like? So that's how I kind of came on to travel nurses. I realized the hospital's not closing, right? Like people have to be here. And because the COVID cases were on the ramp up, there were actually a lot of nurses coming to our area to deal with that. They were shutting down portions of the hospital for COVID units. So I realized, wow, this is a pocket that I'm going to be able to actually make some money on and not have to worry about tenants. So we started looking at our short-term rentals and going, maybe we should put travel nurses in. Maybe I don't want to lock them in for 6 to 8 months, but maybe I'll put them in for a 3-month stint and let's just see what the market does. And that's what we started to do. And what was interesting is these travel nurses, as I talked to more of them, I found out that they were getting paid double and triple to come here, right? Because it's a very, high alert type of system. And, not everybody wants to work in the COVID unit. So what was happening is some of these people were making $3 and $4 grand a week. And I'm like, wow, they can afford the rents. Like, this is amazing. So we started to kind of shift things. And again, we still have our short-term rentals. We still do those, but this is kind of my diversification of a rental portfolio. And this is to help you kind of think in your mind what you could do with your rentals. So again, we talk about long-term tenants. That's like the bread and butter. And we still have long-term tenants. There's nothing wrong with them at all. And I believe that when you're buying a property, the truth is you should never, ever buy a property unless you can sustain and make money with a long-term tenant. And the reason I say that is because vacation rental by owner, Airbnbs are amazing and we make double and triple the rents with them. But what if your city came in with different restrictions and all of a sudden they said, listen, we're not going to allow short-term rentals. We're locking those down because they can do that. And you know what? You can't do anything about that. So now if you banked on making 2 and 3 times the rents, you might not be able to make them and you've got a monthly mortgage due. So what if you had to convert back to a long-term tenant? Would you be able to still make money on your property? So especially your single family home, because you only have one source of income. So that's where I started kind of looking at, okay, I'd really need to look into diversifying, not only with the short-term rentals, but into something else. So then we looked at corporate travelers and in-between home buyers. So what does in-between home buyers mean? So we're getting a huge influx, which I'm sure a lot of you are, no matter where you live right now, people selling and buying. And obviously we all know, and we've heard that inventory is super short. There is no inventory on the MLS. So imagine people are selling their houses with the intent of picking up and moving states across. So we're getting a lot of people all over, from even Florida moving in, Ohio, up north. And what's happening is 2 things. They're selling their house very quickly, and they're selling their house with the intent of buying something once they get here. And people are thinking, oh, so, I'm going to get a property under contract in 2 days upon arrival. So that means I'm going to close in 45 days. Well, come on, guys. As we know, we're getting outbid by 20, 30 people. That's not happening. So what's ending up happening is a lot of these people that are coming to our market are like, okay, I've got kids. I'm married, I'm starting a job there, and we're going to have to live in a hotel. And it not only does it not make sense, it doesn't make financial sense. So now they're looking at options. So I've had a lot of people reaching out to me saying, hey, listen, I can't get into a rental. Would you be willing to use your, short-term rental as a place that I can rent for 3 months until my house is built or till I can buy something? And that's proven to be super lucrative. Now, do I think this will go on forever? Probably not. Do I think this will go on for a year? Probably so. As Stacy was talking about, the market's kind of changing here and there. More inventory may come in, but as long as it's low, this is an option. And I'm going to show you an example of what we did with that. We talk about corporate travelers, right? There's always business people traveling in and out. Some of you might be business people that travel. So, they're opting out of hotels. The whole game of staying in an area is changing because a lot of people now don't want to be in a hotel crammed and stacked on someone else. They want space. So that's been a strategy we've used. College students, that's big, right? Only girls for me, though. I don't rent to boys. I have 2 boys. I know what they do. They destroy my house. So I know what college boys do. And I went through college. So I typically rent to females personally. And no pets in all of mine. Not that I'm against pets, but I just don't do it because people have allergies and it can be an issue, longer term. But usually mom and dad are fronting the bill, which is kind of cool. But I saw college rentals go bad because when COVID hit, parents were like, I'm not paying for you to go to 2 semesters, of college virtually and not be home. So I saw a lot of landlords locally struggle to not be able to fill their units. And we've actually been able to capitalize on buying units that way because that was their one strategy. And then travel nurses, guys, which is what I want to teach you this morning. They're typically here on an assignment for 2 to 3 months. It's a short-term lease, premium top rents, usually double and a half of what you're making on a long-term tenant without the headache, right? So we'll talk about the things you have to think about when you have, excuse me, a long-term tenant and an Airbnb, because there's cons and there's pros to everything, right? Same with travel nurses. And I'm here to be super real and transparent with you so you know what you're getting into. So long-term tenants, what are the cons? Wear and tear. Okay. So they're living there day in and day out. It kind of starts to become their own home, but it's their own home that they don't have home ownership in. They're renting. So do they always take the best care of the property? Probably not. And it depends on what price bracket you're in. And I've learned this. I own a property management company. People tend to think if you're on Section 8 that you're not going to take care of the property and you're going to be an issue. Completely false. I have people that are renting homes for $2,000 a month, and they're probably messier than my lower income tenants. So that is just a myth. So know you're going to get some wear and tear in the property. You always have to worry if that tenant is going to lose their job. There's no security, guys, right? And anything anyone does now. I coach students that have been with companies for 20 and 30 years that were laid off with COVID. So for me, if I have a long-term tenant, especially in a single family home, then I'm running the risk of losing that tenant and having to replace them. And if there's wear and tear, yes, I have a deposit, but I'm going to have to come back and get it rent ready again. So more turnover, more rent. It is hard to find the perfect tenant. We hear this all the time. Whether you manage them yourself or whether you get a property management company, you can interview the property management company, right? Like you can ask all the right questions. You can run the background check, you can do everything. But the reality is sometimes people slip through the cracks and sometimes you don't get the best tenant. So just dealing with that can be a headache alone if you're managing it yourself or for a property management company. There's also less cash flow. So know that probably long-term tenants are the lowest of the cash flow overall. So you have to always buy right in the beginning to make sure you're going to make the money. And I know like learning with single family homes, they say, typically you want to cash flow $300 a month. Okay, which sounds glorious. But the reality is if one thing, breaks, the AC goes out in the summer, and you have to buy a new unit, that's $3,500 right there. So there goes all your cash flow for the year. Now, could you write that off? Absolutely. But again, you're looking for how do I get out of my job and how do I make money and really make more money? And the cons are it's vulnerable to the market, which we talked about, right? Whatever the market standards are and what's going on, a tenant is a tenant. So the pros is you never have to see the property, hopefully, right? That's the goal of the long-term tenant. Now, you might have to see the property if they don't take good care of it because you might have to come in and get maintenance in there. So it might not be you per se, but you're going to want a full-time maintenance person or somebody that at least can show up because you have to get affordable maintenance. It's easier to refinance your property. So when we talk about the BRRRR method and keeping rentals, it's much easier to refi because banks and lenders feel super comfortable with long-term tenants, which is kind of comical to me, but it's that old school way of thinking. Oh, it's safer with a long-term tenant versus a short-term renter, which I completely disagree with. Absolutely, but you're not going to change the bank's mind. There's different tax incentives when you're depreciating your properties and going through and the write-offs you can do, but you still have those with your short-term rentals as well. So those are important things too. On a side note, when you really want to gain more passive income is talking to a great accountant that understands real estate and those, because that's a huge variable within your business. Now we talk about the short-term rentals, or as we call them, the Airbnbs. What are the cons? Again, the city ordinance changes. This happened. Actually, I coached a student in Vegas. They bought this property that they could have rented, but the cash flow really wasn't that good. It was a higher end property with more bedrooms. So the cash flow really wouldn't have made sense to keep it as a long-term rental. And they bought it and they could have long-term rented it, but the cash flow would have been good. They ended up converting it to a short-term rental. Well, guess what happened in Vegas? They started shutting down all of the short-term rentals. They said, hey, listen, if you're not in at this point, you're out. Sorry, everything is grandfathered in before and everything after, too bad. So they had to go, and they were actually outside of the strip. They're located, I think, in Henderson or right around that area. And they had to go in and go to all the town meetings to get approved to be able to short-term rent their unit. And they did. They were successful, thank goodness. But what if they hadn't been? That might not have been the best investment. So it's really important to know your zoning and what's going on in your city with any real estate that you do, because that can really make or break where you buy. And this is really important. Like with all of these strategies, you don't have to buy in your local market, guys. That's what's cool. You can buy this anywhere. Noah and I have been searching out, because again, we do love short-term rentals. We've been looking at different markets with the highest return of investment on short-term rentals. So we aren't going to live there. We'll put property management in place, but it's important to know, like, is this city really open to doing it? And what's the competition, right? So it all comes down to market research as well. The cons, cleaning. Short-term rentals, there's a lot of turnover, right? So you want to make sure you have a good cleaner in place. Now, how many of you on here have ever had a property that you've had to go and clean, or you've tried to hire a cleaner, or even had a cleaner come in your own home? I'm really picky. I grew up with a mom that was super OCD, that was clean to the umpteenth level. So literally, I always feel like nothing is good enough. Nothing is clean enough. Unfortunately, that's my philosophy when I'm looking, especially in a short-term rental. The top thing that will make someone not rent your place is if it's not clean. So you have to make sure you have that going for you. There's high turnover. So and that's not always the case, because you can do weekly rentals. And I'm starting to see like more people are, because, you can work and travel virtually. So a lot of people can go for a week at a time and do different things. The problem is, what's happening is a lot of people come into our area for 2 or 3 days at a time. And that's for many different reasons. There could be a football game. Maybe they're visiting their children. So that means I may have to get my property cleaned 2 and 3 times a week, right? So you can, put a cleaning fee in, but you still got to line up the cleaner and make sure it's good to go. And ratings are everything. For those of you that stayed in a short-term rental, it's like, I almost feel bad sometimes. Like, you want to be honest, when we stayed at some, maybe it hasn't been the best experience. Maybe it hasn't been the cleanest, but coming from an owner to an owner, I never want to bash someone, because I know their ratings are everything. If someone's reading and they've got a 3 out of 5 stars, it's not good. Like, you're not going to get bookings like you would at 5 out of 5. So you're dependent upon that. And changes to the travel market. Again, we saw that with COVID. That really shut down. I was like feeling really bad for people that had vacation rentals in other countries, or like in Hawaii, very long distance, because what was happening is people couldn't even get there to vacation. And I know an investor personally that their overhead, like monthly, was $2,700 a month on one of their vacation rentals in Hawaii. So I'm like, oh, that's painful. Like, what are they going to do? And how many months is it going to be till the market picks back up? Who knows? So the pros to Airbnb, high cash flow. Like, literally on our short-term rentals, we're making triple the money, which is awesome. Less wear and tear. I literally have learned with our Airbnbs, we started out like you wanted to make it look super crisp and clean. But now I'd paint darker colors, right? Because the walls don't get chipped. It looks better over time. There's hopefully no eviction concerns. Knock on wood. We've never had an issue with anybody overstaying, right? Because you're getting professional people and they're vetting them, and they always pay. So these are the good things. Now, to let you know, we talk about condition of the property with travel nurses, long-term, short-term, all of these. Really, you're fixing up their property the same. You're making it look good. There's nothing you're doing above and beyond. So what's cool about this is interchangeably, you can actually do all these things at one time. And you could switch them month to month. So for us, if like the summer is a time that I try not to take on any rehabs or wholesales, like I just want to be with the kids. This year's been different. I've been with them all the time, but we can actually travel, no virtual school. And I want to make sure that I can check out of my properties. So the travel nurse strategy is amazing, because for 3 months, I can put a travel nurse in and not have to think about that property. And this is the perfect example of what we bought last year. We bought a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000-square-foot condo. It's in a great location. I have a B neighborhood. So this is how I buy my properties. But when I'm really looking to travel nurse them, and Airbnb, because I'm not going to buy always in the A neighborhoods, right? Because people coming in don't care about school districts. they're not coming in so their child can go to school there. They're coming in to know it's safe and good. I don't want to buy in the D zones, right? The war zones. So I try to stay in the high CBs. I will buy in like a regentrified neighborhood. But I want to buy near a hospital or in close proximity, right? And the reason I want to do that is because I want to go in and go, it's convenient. Now, most travel nurses, unless they're like in a downtown city, are going to have a car with them. So they're able to get to them. But do you think after they've worked the night shift, they really want to drive 45 minutes? No, absolutely not. Because most of them are working the night shift. They're working crazy hours. That's why they come in on this assignment to make very good money, because they're willing to do whatever. So we purchased this for 65,000. I know for some of you, this is like crazy because you're like, how is that possible? It was in the worst neighborhood. No, it's really in an older little community. And I'm actually targeting this community now for other properties. We rented it for $1,325 a month. Market rent average was $1,000, depending on the condition of the properties. Now, hindsight, I could have rented that thing, like I said, for $1,425, probably even up because it's a 2-bed, 2-bath. So what I found is a lot of travel nurses that look for more bedrooms, more bathrooms, typically are traveling with either a spouse that works from home, or they're traveling with their children, or a caretaker. So this actual unit was a young nurse who had a small child whose aunt lived with them because she took care of the baby. It just made sense for her to travel because she can make $3,000 a week. So she was like living the life, right? And she loved the community because it had an in-ground park and playground, a little walk around the like pond. It has Walmart, all the major restaurants, mall, everything in like 0.5 miles, not even, probably closer than that, 0.3. So it was in great proximity. So as you can see, the tenant paid 32.5% more than they would on the market rent. And what's cool is the tenant extended the 3-month lease. She was actually in there for 9 months, guys. She was in there forever and she was awesome. I just kept extending. I was like, great. Yeah, I never hear from her. This is amazing. She paid on time, no headaches. And I'll talk about the leases I use and how I have my travel nurses pay, because it's really important that things are done really easy for them. They want easy. They want to be left alone. That's the truth. Half the time, I never even meet the travel nurse when they come into town. Literally everything's done through a website where they vet people. And then I literally have a lockbox on there. Here's the information. If you need me, great. If you don't need me, you'll never see me, right? Like, I'm not going to bother you if you don't need me. So that's what I love about it too. It's very hands off. And again, with your short-term rentals, you're hoping you're getting good people in all the time, but you don't know. Same with travel nurses. But I feel I'd say 100% confident that if there's a nurse, they are going through a vetting process to work in the medical industry. They've gone to school a very long time and invested a lot of money in their education. I'm feeling pretty good that this is a good person that, I'm not going to have any headaches with. So that's what's kind of cool. Now, I actually met her because she needed something and I swung by, and she was super sweet. But it was just kind of cool. I typically will reach out. Hey, do you need anything, just to check in? Cause I almost feel bad. I'm like, I haven't talked to them for 3 months. Like, are they okay? And guys, she just moved out. And what's interesting, we bought this condo last year and it was a great investment, but the market's so up. We bought this so cheap. We actually sold it within like that 9 months. We just sold it and made 15 grand on it, which is like comical almost that the market's so up. And I know I can target market that same neighborhood and probably buy condos for 35 to 40,000 because it's an older absentee owner neighborhood. So I plan on doing that. So we might be looking for something else in there. And we actually just decided to kind of change up our strategy as well. But that being said, when she moved out, this place was in pristine condition. I just had to get it clean. There were no scuffs on the walls. There was nothing wrong. So literally that time period she lived there was a perfect example of everything being in great shape. Now you're asking, how do I find these travel nurses? Like, where do I go? Like, Airbnb, VRBO, I know that for short term, but where do I go to find these people? So there is a website called furnishfinder.com, and you can advertise your property, I think annually for $100. You can throw it on there. It might be a little bit more now. They might have upped it up because a lot of people are, transitioning to other types of people. And using travel nurses, but you can go on Furnish Finder. And this is a great like market research website too. You can actually go in there and pretend like you're looking for a property in your area that you want to invest. And then you can type in, like, some people rent their house and they rent rooms in their house. So like we talk about house hacking and doing things. This is a strategy you could actually, if you have an in-law suite in your house, you can or an extra room. I mean, I'm not comfortable with doing that, because I have kids and this, but some people are okay with that. And honestly, I have a friend that's a travel nurse, and every time she went to a city, because she said I was so lonely, I don't know anybody in the city. I actually prefer to stay in the room of the house with someone to have companionship and like somebody there. So for her, renting a room was okay. So you can even do that in your own home if that was something you were open to. And you can go in and research 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 whatever, entire unit, solo unit. You could look at all the locations of people in your market that have units and what they're renting for. And you can see how long they're booked up when there's is available. So it gives you an idea of occupancy and what's going on and what you could actually rent your units for. So you can find that out before you ever even found a property. Or if you're thinking about converting one of your long-term rentals into something like this, you can do the market research to make sure that's a good option. And like I said, I'll find that it's double the rents typically, sometimes double and a half, depending on the city that you're in. There's also a Furnish Finder Facebook group, so you can add yourself to that and market there. I'm not lying when I say when I throw a new property up, I probably have 30 inquiries within like a month. It's ridiculous. Like I told Noah, like we need to buy more properties. There's so many travel nurses and they're willing to pay. I can't even keep up. And what's cool, because you're thinking like same with, short-term rentals, is that there's so much competition. But guys, most of our older landlords in our area are so dead set on either college students or 12-month leases. They don't even think about this as an option. So it knocks half the competition out. And most people are so sold on short-term rentals, they're not even thinking about this. You can save money by posting once. So this is a ninja tip. So on Furnish Finder, I had one property on there. That one property leased, and I accidentally forgot to say it leased. And when the next time was open, so what started happening is I had people out the wazoo contacting me for that rental. And I was like, oh, that rental's taken, but I have 4 other rentals that you might be interested in. So I was able to actually maximize and only spend $100 to market that one property, but I was able to take all the leads and put them into other properties, which was cool. There's another Facebook website called the Gypsy Nurse, and that is a free website. That's a little different. So Furnish Finder has different criteria where you go in and log on, right? Gypsy Nurse doesn't. It's just kind of an open forum. It's kind of like couch surfing and those websites where you go in and you just say, hey, I'm a nurse. But I'm going to show you how to vet those nurses, even if you went that route, because again, it's a nurse. So we're feeling like they've gone through background checks at the hospital. So there's a lot of value to that. So what's important to travel nurses? So what I found, and I asked them when they stay with me, what comfort is number one. Is the bed comfortable? Do you have a sound machine? Remember, they're working long shifts. Do you have blackout curtains, right? Like no light coming in. I had one nurse, we had skylights in the room. And I thought about it before she checked in, because I had actually long-term rented that unit before, then converted. And she said, do you care if I cover these skylights or do something with them? I was like, oh, I have a better idea. I'll do it for you. Like, let's just get this done. So I started learning, it was really about like, how can they get as much sleep as possible to get up and refunction? I mean, this, you've been in the hospital before. We've all been there for different circumstances. And as frustrated as when we're in there, we might get at nurses, these guys, they're working 12, 15-hour shifts. I can't imagine like doing all kinds of things, and just it's stressful. So they just want to unwind. Quiet. Is it in an area that there's like heavy traffic driving by? Well, if you're in a city with heavy traffic and it's, downtown LA or wherever, okay, that is what it is, right? Like you're not gonna be able to block that out maybe with the sound machine, but your buying criteria may be close to the hospital. For us, our downtown houses are streets that aren't as busy. So I try not to buy on a busy street. And that goes for any, property I'm buying. Safety. Are they safe? Men and women both travel, but everyone wants to feel like, even when I stay at a short-term rental, I don't want to feel like, oh, the neighborhood's sketchy. Am I going to get robbed? Is someone going to break in the house? Is this comfortable? Privacy. Is the neighbor going to be up in my business? Like, are they going to look out for me? Are they nice? I mean, I do that when I'm buying all my rentals anyway. The more private, the better. But safety is important for me buying as well. And that's why I don't buy in low income neighborhoods. If I can't go out there, if I can't go pick up rent, if I'm not comfortable, I'm not buying there. Close proximity to the hospital. So within Columbia, we probably have 6 major hospitals, maybe more than that now, and then small divisions of that major hospital, Prisma, Baptist. So what's happening is all of these hospitals have little subcategories. I find that some people come in for a small stint at a local facility. And again, they're on in here for usually 3-month assignments with the option a lot of times to keep going and extend their lease. Utilities, internet included. So obviously they want these. They just want to come in and say, look, I don't want a la carte. I want it all in. What can I pay? $1,600 a month? Great. Okay, good. I just need to know that's my number I pay and I don't have to deal with any bills. They don't want to come in and transfer their name over right into the power and water for 3 months. Like that's a headache, guys. Get out of that old school mentality. And I think that's a lot of people think, oh my gosh, well, what if my electric bill is umpteen $1 million? Or what if they run the AC nonstop? Just tell people we're all adults. Listen, if you leave during the day, and it's hot. We live in South Carolina and, it's super hot in the summer. We had a really cold winter for here. Listen, just be mindful. I am paying the power, guys. Like if you could, when you leave for the day, just cut it up to this or cut it down to this. Of course they're going to do that, right? Like you've got this situation that like you want it to be a win-win for everyone. And it's worked out great because a lot of my nurses that have come in, I'm like, if you ever come back for an assignment or another nurse that's coming in, please refer them in to me, right? Absolutely. They leave reviews. So it's a really easy business to kind of build on. Systems for success. So we talk about like what things are in place. Now, this is a little bit different and this is going to be uncomfortable for some people. Like if you haven't done a short-term rental, it's probably going to be real uncomfortable because with a long-term tenant, we're always taking a full deposit. We're always background checking everything. Some people will let credit slide, some won't. We don't want any criminal charges, right? We don't want any evictions, all this stuff. Well, I have to at some level go, okay, I can only rent this house for $1,000, but this person's going to pay $2,000 a month. Am I really worried about all the circumstances? Like, do I really want to run their credit? You got to think if they're on a 3-month assignment, they're going to 4 different cities in 1 year. Do you think they want to ding their credit every time? I don't even want to ding my credit. Like when I'm applying for something, I'm mad when I am flipping a house in Virginia and Dominion Powers, who I use in South Carolina, but Dominion Power is different in Virginia. I called them. They said, we have to run your credit. I said, why do you have to run my credit? And they're like, well, that's the process. I'm like, I don't want to ding my credit, right? That's annoying for a power check when I'm doing a rehab. So they feel the same way. So short-term lease, absolute in place. Now I've had nurses that said, I don't want to sign a short-term lease. I said, well, great. I don't want to rent to you, right? That's my option. So I just look for the ones that do. There's nothing in there that's weird. The reason they don't want to sign short-term leases is the last thing on my list, flexible assignment release. I had a nurse that came in for a month and this can happen. They can get basically a release that says, hey, we don't need you anymore. So they don't want to sign a 3-month lease because in their mind, what if that landlord's going to stick them for that 3 months? So I tell my travel nurses, listen, guys, I need a short-term lease. I have to have a 3-month lease. I don't think you're not going to pay, but like, I own a property management company. What if something does happen? I want to be in the position that I'm protecting myself and you're protecting you. But I put a clause in there. If you find out your assignment ends early, just give me a week's notice, right? I just need to know. And honestly, it's not a big deal because I've got 10 other travel nurses that are ready to move in. It's life. It happens, right? So just be flexible. That could happen. Deposit and cleaning fee. So if I'm renting this place for $1,600 a month, of course, I don't want any damages when they move out, especially for a travel nurse that's there 9 to 12 months. So think about your deposit, but I could ask them for a full deposit down, but I'm not typically because again, these travel nurses, just so you know, when they get an assignment, they usually have 1 week to pick up and go. It's like your assignment's here. Okay, you're in Louisiana on assignment now. Well, we want you to come here 1 week, boom, maybe even 3 days. So a lot of times it's more of the headache, I think, of them managing money and putting everything in place, which I get because I travel for a living at a point in my life. So I understand how hectic that can be. It's almost like what's easier. So I might take, if it's a unit I'm renting for $1,600 a month, I may take $400 deposit. I'm good with that, right? Because again, I'm getting references. I'm getting people that they've actually housed with in the past. So that makes me feel confident they're good. I'm talking to their recruiter and getting approval. Hey, they have an assignment here, right? Yes, they do. Okay, great. Is that a 3-month? Yes, it is. Okay, cool. Background check, again, I don't do. I don't look at their credit. I don't look at this because I'm not going to ding them. I don't want that done to myself. I'm not going to do that to them. We've been doing this for over a year now, and knock on wood, everything's been very good. Cleaning fee, I put that in there because when, my idea of cleanliness isn't the same as everyone else's. I've learned that over my lifetime. So if you feel like, and this is something you can ask your travel nurse, hey, I realize you're super busy. Would you like me to have my cleaning person come in once a month and do a deep clean for you? Right? You can include that in the price. Some of them are happy to do that because they're like, yes, I don't want to deal with that. So, or take a cleaning fee on the back end because when they move out, because again, they are working long hours and busy, you might have to deep clean that place. So account for that within your deposit if you add that on. And mostly everyone I've dealt with, it hasn't been an issue. So again, we talk about diversifying the rental portfolio. So I want to actually go into a case study of what we started doing, like kind of how we started and where we are. So a lot of our first properties, and some of them I've actually started to sell off because I bought them at the turn of the market in the 2007, 8, 9s, right? So the equity has come up so much. I've actually sold them because I'm reinvesting more of my money into passive income properties. And I found that the single family house, just that model is great, but it also like kind of limits you. And we wanted to expand because our goal, again, minimum $10,000 a month coming in. That's actually raised, but that's where we want to be. Like, because I feel like then you don't have to get up in the morning if you don't want to. Now we can take a week off. If you pay off all your debt, I tell Noah this all the time. When I ask anyone I'm coaching, what do you want to make in the next year? $1 million. That's always the answer. And I'm like, why does everyone think they want to make $1 million? It's so bizarre. Like, what does $1 million do for you? And if you've only made $30,000 to $50,000 a year your whole life, and now you want to make $1 million, like, why? Like, is that what's been ingrained in our mind? I'm like, what if you had all your debt paid off and you made $100,000 on your passive income a year? If you had no debt, guys, you're living almost like a millionaire, right? A millionaire, yeah, lives differently. They're leveraging a lot too. Their life looks a little different. So really start with goals that make sense for you and where you need to be. Our financial goal, and then just paying off debt. Like, why? And I'm not talking about mortgages and that, right? Like, that's leverage. That's leverageable debt. I'm talking about credit card bills that you're paying 20% interest a month, right? Car payments that you're paying, high car payment, right? This is money you're throwing away. So whereas your goal might be 10,000, some of you might need 15,000 a month, right? Because of that debt. But once you wipe that out, you can lower your goal. So when we started looking at the single family homes, we started looking at like, how can we capitalize, but also diversify, make more money? So this was a really interesting property that we found. It was on the MLS for a very long amount of time. It was a probate where someone had passed away. The parents had actually passed away. These are a lot of our target properties, the baby boomers downsizing. And I love the baby boomer generation because they're smart. Half these properties I'm buying, it's like, hey, we had a house. We took that house and we split the house. So we lived in the top. We actually converted the bottom to an apartment. So we were able to make money on that while we lived there. And then we built a whole nother unit, or we used the back pool house and converted it into this, right? This was back when there were no rules or laws and you could just build and do what you wanted to do, right? Now we have, city zoning and ordinance, and you can't do this, right? Things are so nitpicky now, but back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, it was like anything flies. Just, you want to build a garage in the back and rent it? Sure, let's do it. Well, a lot of those properties have been grandfathered in, which is pretty cool. Or this, if you're rehabbing, illegal additions built on houses, right? Back in the day when you bought a house, and I laugh because it's my grandparents, and you had, 8 or 9 kids, you didn't go buy another house. Are you kidding me? Your house is halfway paid off. You just built another section on your house. You found a way to make it work, which I love because I'm like, that's actually genius. So this property here was mislabeled in a sense on the MLS. And it again is in probably like I would say high C, mid B neighborhood. So it backs up to an A area, but it's one zip code off. So the school districts aren't as good. And what I loved about this property is it sits on one parcel and it's surrounded by apartments. So it's a very rental area, but a good rental area. So you probably wouldn't, like, nobody would go in there and say, hey, I'm going to buy this amazing house because, of the location. But for an investor, it was like the perfect thing. So I noticed it had dropped price like pretty drastically, but the listing read live in one home and have income on the others. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, so I started funneling through the listing and I drove by and I'm like, oh my God, gold mine, jackpot. This is the best property. It was a house, a 2,100 square foot house, 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath. And then on the same parcel, that the parcel sits sideways, the next parcel over was a freestanding, that's unit B. It's a freestanding like 801 square foot apartment. And then the next one, as you can see, that's a 900 square foot, right? So, and it has like a storage garage under. So we actually have a storage unit under, and it was a raised apartment on top with the bedroom down. So I started looking at this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a gold mine. So they originally had it listed, I think in like the 160s. So I went in and we went back and forth. It was the sons that had inherited. They lived out of state. And guys, they had fully renovated the house because their agent did a really poor job. The agent didn't tell them, hey guys, this is probably never going to sell. So they rehabbed this house to the nines. Now the middle B and C unit were pretty basic. You could tell they had really bad tenants in there, honestly, and they just didn't take care of it. So we went in, as you can see, fancy painted up, decorated, nice, shabby chic, did put everything in. And we initially rented the third unit. This was like right after I started with travel nurses. But what's unique about the third unit is the bedroom is downstairs and the bathroom and kitchen and living room are up. So not everybody's going to love that floor plan. So we actually had a college student rent that. And I could have gotten more, but she's in there for 2 years. Like she's already been in there a year. Her mom just called her. She locked in her second year. So she's steady Eddie. Her parents mailed a check. Like I don't even have to think about it. The middle unit, we Airbnb'd first, but then I found, man, I can make so much more money if I travel nurse this. And you can see the market rent is 800. I actually, so the guy that's in there right now, he's a travel nurse. He's been in there since last October. And he's going to be out in June. I actually now know I can rent that unit to a travel nurse. I think I could get somewhere in the upwards of like 1275. So I can actually raise that. So that's going to be awesome. But again, as is now, I mean, listen, you see our gross rents and you see our mortgage, taxes, insurance, we're cash flowing that thing really well. So then the house, I had a long-term tenant initially because I like to diversify. I was like, okay, if I have my staple long-term, then I have my travel nurse, then I have my college student, whatever happens to the market, like we're good. We've covered every angle. So if one moves out, we can still cover our mortgage and make money and vice versa. Well, she ended up leaving in January. And I kind of went back and forth because honestly, this house, guys, is huge. It has a whole upstairs that I could put a kitchen and washer and dryer if I wanted to. And I could actually probably put 2 travel nurses in there and double for future forward, right? So anyway, I have a lot of agents I work with, and my agent reached out to me and she said, listen, I've got a lady who sold her house in Ohio and she's looking for a house here. She can't find anything. And I'm like, well, she said, do you have any property she could rent? And I was like, absolutely. Actually, I do. And I actually put a travel nurse in before this lady from January till March. I put in a lady, Cerise. She was a travel nurse. Her assignment got cut, so she had to leave. And then I actually opened it up to one of those hybrid tenants I talked about. Of they're buying a house here. They actually closed on the house, but they're doing a lease back to the owners. They can't be out till the end of June. So I'm able to rent that thing for $1,600 a month when the market rents are $1,100. So it's a $500 difference, no headaches, don't have to deal with it. And I could rent that house. I really think because on our website, I check bedrooms, who's actually looking for housing in the Columbia area. Because this house is so big, I think I could rent it to a travel nurse who was married with kids. I think I could actually pull almost $2,000 on that if I really tried. So what's cool about that, I'm still making money, guys, but I could still diversify that out. But what's amazing about these 3 units is I don't have to deal with them. That's what I really care about. And I'm making double, the income on them. So it's been a cool strategy. We actually bought another 4 unit that's in a way better location. It's actually an A neighborhood. We just got a heck of a deal because it had a major foundation issue. But the house already had a tenant. And then there were 3 units. I found out the gentleman who owned it had a stroke. So everything started going downhill at that point, because I actually talked to the tenant in the house. But there's a bottom unit of the house. Then they had a pool house. They filled in the pool. The back pool house, they converted to 2 units. So there's actually 4 units on one parcel. So right now I have a girl in the house who will be out in September, which actually is great because I can either VRBO that, or I can travel nurse that and make double the income on that. I have someone I moved in the bottom unit, which is actually my kids pre-K teacher. She wanted to move out on her own. So we cut her a heck of a deal to barter babysitting, right? So that worked out good. The back unit, I have a gentleman who's here. We have a military base. He's in there till the end of May. I'm actually going to travel nurse that. And then I have the bottom unit that I'm waiting to launch because I need to switch out the electrical box, and I'm going to travel nurse that. So we bought that one for actually $185. We're all in about $230. But we're going to refinance that one. And then we should hopefully be cash flowing at over $5,000 a month. And our mortgage, taxes, everything, insurance are going to be around $1,200. So we're going to crush it on that one. We'll be making about $3,000 a month on that 4 unit. So our new strategy is getting rid of a lot of our single families and moving into 3 and 4 units, because we can make double and triple the income with less the headache. So that is my information this morning on travel nurses and why you should look into doing it or converting everything out, because it really is a killer business.
Hey, all right, awesome. I love it. Can you do me a favor and
Yes, ma'am.
Tell everybody when you teach? And why am I like, oh, what's going on?
Yes, for the super group.
Yes.
Okay, so Noah and I run the super group. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the 3rd Thursday of the month. Okay.
3rd Thursday of the month. Okay, so her and her husband both teach together. And what I say about the state super groups, what I want to do real fast, I'm going to share my screen.
Cool.
And because I want everybody to know, to understand that we have state super groups, and we also have niche related groups. Okay, so just everybody knows. And the state ones, essentially, these are expert investors that are just like, I don't want to pick like one thing to just teach all the time. Like I want to teach everything, whatever I want to teach, we teach or something, you know? So they basically lead the state is what they do. And my goal, and you can go to, go to super groups right here, and then click on state super groups. Okay. And my goal is to really get every single state, to get like a facilitator, a teacher expert of every single state. And essentially you can think of them as kind of like virtual RIAs, really, you know, like just a monthly meeting every single month. And then the leader, the facilitators of the state groups, they can just guide you on like all things like South Carolina or Ohio. So I wanted to show you guys here. Arizona's here. We have Arizona Alice, who's supposed to be coming on next. Hopefully we can get a hold of her. Colorado is here, and then Georgia and Ohio, they're speaking today as well too, and then South Carolina. And we got a lot of like husband-wife teams for the state groups. And so that is what I wanted to show you guys. And my goal for REI USA.
Oh, Stacy, you're muted.
Somebody just muted me. Okay, so my goal is all 50 states, and to have a monthly meeting for all of them. So that way you can do exactly what Jennifer taught yesterday, which is long distance real estate investing as well too. So it's a virtual world. So you should be able to live in Tennessee and invest in Ohio, or live in South Carolina. She said, even Christy said they have stuff in Virginia. We live in Georgia. We're now starting to invest in Texas, right? So essentially, like that's basically what the long distance real estate investing and not long distance, I'm sorry, the state super groups are. Okay, so just so you know, that's what they teach. So and another thing I always say too is like, even if you're not interested in South Carolina, but you're like, I want to go learn from Noah or Christy, just go, because essentially what they teach is like you can learn that in every single.
Literally, Stacy, we try to teach stuff. Can I run down through the chat questions and answer a couple?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
sorry, guys. I'm a huge multitasker. multitasker until it comes to technology. And I'm like, I need to just get my screen up. So I saw on average, what is the cost to hire a property management company, and just getting started, do you recommend? So listen, I think the travel nursing, I mean, I guess it depends on your schedule, right? Like, and we do this full time, but it's been pretty easy for me to manage myself, and that's why I do it. I would say you're probably, it's a unique strategy. So could you get with a property management company if you already have property and see if they would do it for 8 to 10%? Maybe. Most of like the short-term rentals in those will charge more, 15, 20, 25% the upwards, but everything's negotiable, right? Um, Generally what occupancy rate, literally we are like probably at 100, like 96%, because literally if I know someone's moving out, I know their exact date and they're ready to go, guys. There's no question, because they're going to their next nursing assignment. So I'm able to turn that real fast. I really just need to get my cleaner in. How does one determine the grade of the neighborhood to invest in, Dana? That's a good question. So that an agent can help you with, just like when you're rehabbing, flipping, buy and holding. Your best school districts are going to dictate your A neighborhoods. B is probably maybe that same school district, but just not as beautiful of a neighborhood. And then C, is more of like your rental, not best school districts. What do you charge for the exit cleaning fee? That's all on what your person, your cleaning person pays. I would say 150 to 200 if it's a real deep clean. But sometimes I've walked in these units and they're like freaking spotless. They're probably cleaner than my house because I have kids that just, throw food everywhere. Just wreck everything. How often do you clean a unit for a 3-month stay? I think that's up to the individual that's in there, asking them. Some people prefer not to have a cleaner and they'll do it themselves. The girl that just moved out, her place was spotless. I know Noah answered about lawn care, pool, hire someone to do that, right? Like we have rehab, so we just have our same crew. What if you're booked back to back, the current one want to renew? So I don't take another assignment until I know. So that's a good question. So like my travel nurse, Isaiah, he's booked for about 9 months. He's been in there. He usually knows before his one assignment ends, hey, Christy, I should be getting a contract. I said, that's cool. That's fine. You just let me know even a week and a half in advance, because a lot of these people are a week apart between. But I think that kind of goes through that. And I saw somebody saying they're renting their in-law suite. Great job. And it covers their mortgage. That's freaking awesome. When the bookings don't line up back to back, but do you fill in the vacancies in between? Yes, that's a great question. So sometimes, because what I've noticed, that the assignments do go back to back, because I guess travel nurses travel in like bundles kind of. So if they're not, and I have like a 2-week opening, yes, I have my listing on VRBO and Airbnb. So I'll throw that thing up real fast and take a 2 or 3 day or a week for a corporate traveler. So that's why my occupancy is so high. And again, I know it's different. Some of you are getting started. We do this full time. So for me, listen, I know everyone preaches always be the entrepreneur, but listen, even though I'm always the entrepreneur, I still got to swing a hammer sometimes. Sometimes I got to do something, like put on we just launched a short-term rental, and guess what? We were over there cleaning it, making sure everything's perfect. That happens. I mean, it's life. This is my job now. It's okay. Take the kids, let's roll. How does an investor find out if my area needs more housing for travel nurses? I have my eyes on property 2 blocks from the hospital here in New Haven. So that would be get on that Furnish Finder website and just look and see how many people have their properties listed on there too, because I think that gives a good indicator. But you could talk to hospitals in general. I mean, maybe calling the hospital up and talking, right? Like that definitely works. And it looks like multifamily homes are a good bet for short-term rentals with nurses. I do. I love the multifamily, guys. You can't not sell me on that. I just think more units is better. After COVID, it really kind of changed my mindset. And what about the cleaning since COVID? I think it's fine. Things are kind of nurses. Here's what's interesting. They're working in the COVID unit. So they're kind of like safe, but kind of the ones that don't even care, which is funny because they're like, dude, I'm around this all day. It's fine. It's whatever. So, and I found cleaners aren't weird about it. Some of them have the higher level cleaning COVID regulations, so they'll do that. So cool. Thank you guys.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.